Now to one of the most costly and lengthy investigations the ABC has undertaken at your expense. In 2018, then Four Corners host Sarah Ferguson travelled the world in her quest to prove that Donald Trump won the 2016 election by betraying his country.
Hello and welcome to Four Corners. Tonight we begin our special three-part investigation into the story of the century, the election of US President Donald Trump and his ties to Russia.
Yes, it was classic Four Corners catharsis. The luvvies have never accepted the legitimacy of Trump's election, and the only way they can live with this is to maintain he colluded with Russia. As part of this supposed scoop, Ferguson interviewed former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper, who claimed the Russians were behind it all.
They figured that Trump would be much better to deal with on a whole range of issues, and certainly among which would be sanctions, or perhaps being more benign or treating the situation in Ukraine more benignly than the prior administration or a Clinton administration would.
Well, just this week, the House Intelligence Committee's sensational transcripts were released, which showed that in 2017, intelligence officials, including Clapper, were telling a very different story in testimony behind closed doors.
Never saw any direct empirical evidence that the Trump campaign or someone in it was plotting, conspiring with the Russians to meddle in the elections. This is behind closed doors. We're just getting this evidence now, last week. Susan Rice, I don't recall intelligence that I would consider evidence to that effect that I saw, a conspiracy prior to my departure. Andrew McCabe, when asked about the most damning piece of evidence, quote, "We have not been able to prove the accuracy of all the information. You don't know if it's true or not." That's correct. I don't know if it's true.
What a joke. I mean, not only is Clapper's credibility compromised, there's now questions about the accuracy of his testimony that he had not briefed Obama about a certain telephone conversation with Michael Flynn to do with a Russian diplomat. FBI records recently released show that Obama already knew the detail of this call, which means Clapper could now face criminal charges. This is simply the latest development in this smearing schmozzle that's been going on ever since Trump was elected. This is what Sarah Ferguson had to say in 2018.
The Kremlin's puppet master now has America dancing to his discordant tune. He couldn't have planned it better.
Actually, Sarah, speaking of puppet masters, this is pretty much what your so-called special investigation into the story of the century amounts to.
This is what we call a
And let's not forget the ABC's Matt Bevin, who's been using your hard-earned money to produce over 60 episodes of the podcast, Russia, Are You Listening?
But what if he had help? What if he was put into the most powerful office in the world by one of the United States' greatest foes?
And Bevin is something of a boy wonder, as demonstrated by his appraisal of discredited former FBI Director James Comey.
Look, let's start with James Comey, because you interviewed him first. He was the director of the FBI and was really in charge at the beginning of the look into Russian interference in the election. Watching him in that interview with you, he didn't strike me as a liar.
Yes, Matt has extrasensory ability to tell if someone's lying or not. And funny enough, when they're an enemy of Trump, they're telling the truth. Here's ABC's Matt Bevin in April this year following the release of the redacted Mueller report.
Mueller's investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired with the Russian government, and that's making Donald Trump very happy.
I'm having a good day too. It was called No Collusion, No Obstruction.
But did he obstruct justice?
Don't you just love that dramatic but?
Well, according to, literally half of the report that I have sitting in front of me, kinda yes.
Kinda yes doesn't actually cut it, Matt Bevin. Even your own fellow journalist picked up on this.
Matt, we'll go to you first.
Sure.
Because your podcast, the name of your podcast is predicated on the fact that there was collusion. If there's no collusion now, you're going to have to change the name of the podcast.
Well, potentially.
Don't worry, Matt. Our mate Nigel Farage has just the title for your podcast.
You couldn't make it up, could you?
But shamefully, like so much of the world's media, our ABC, paid for by you, did just that time after time.